Are you ready to talk some hockey? Get your opinions ready, get set, and welcome your host, Samwelb. Hey, what's up, everybody? Hope you are having a great evening, a great start to your week. Here we are again after some amazing nights of hockey. Now it's time to sit down and actually talk about it. And we have a treat today. We are going to have a lot of fun. And before we get to that, let's do a quick hello to everybody here. Prep, what's going on? Good to see you. Beverly, good evening. Grandpa the Gamer, hello there. Linda, good to see you. Hayden, what's up? No overtime tonight, Hayden. But man, yeah, you sure have gotten a lot of it lately. Jennifer, great to see you. Hope you're doing well. Joanna, hello there. What is up? Dallas in the house. Good to see you. Andy, hello, Andy, and welcome in, everybody. We're going to have some fun tonight because we have a treat. We are kicking off a brand new show with a special guest who you already know who it is. So let's not waste another moment and bring him on so we could talk some hockey. Zachary, hello there. Here we go. Please welcome to the show, John from Hot Take Hockey. What's up, my man? How are you?
Hey man, I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, I mean, I know we're going to talk some Leafs, talk some NHL hockey, and yeah, it's kind of a weird one tonight as we're recording this and live. No NHL hockey tonight, so I guess it kind of works out. It's a good night to have a show like this.
Absolutely. Zachary, what's up? And you're right. It is so strange. I usually forget to make my Tim Hortons picks. I don't know if you get on the Tim Hortons bandwagon to get those points. And I always forget. And usually I go live in the game and I'm like, oh, it's the first period. I got to make my picks. I jumped on tonight and I saw no games. Like, what's up with that? It's crazy. Daniel, what's up? Good to see you. All right. So we're going to talk hockey. We're going to talk some NHL. There's a lot going on right now. And before we get into it, why don't you take a moment and just tell everyone kind of on our side who might not know about you, who you are, what you do, and what you're all about.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate that. I appreciate the introduction. And as I said, I appreciate you having me. I know we'll kind of do it back and forth on both channels here, but yeah, just for anyone that doesn't know my channel, I've been doing it for a few years now, probably since 2018, pretty solid. Do live streaming, videos. I don't just do Leaf stuff. I do it kind of across the board, but definitely grew up a diehard Leaf fan still today. And I think that's kind of where Sam and I share the same passion, obviously for hockey, but more specifically, our Leafs fandom is pretty heavy. So yeah, if you come by my channel, you'll probably see there's a lot of similarities, I'd say, with Sam. Just we've talked about a community and just a lot of great fan bases across the board. And I think at the end of the day, it's pretty cool that we get to kind of share it on the same platform on YouTube. So yeah, that's kind of my story. Just like I said, live streaming videos, did a lot of World Junior stuff back in the day, still doing it when I can. And yeah, NHL hockey is a good time. So go Leafs, go always.
Absolutely. Go Leafs, go for sure.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into it. There's a lot to talk about. Obviously, the Sweden trip is kind of freshest in our minds. What did you think? 8 a.m. hockey? I liked it. What do you think?
Yeah, you know what? I actually probably for the first time this season, I missed most of the games Sunday morning. So I recorded a bit. I watched a lot of it back. I got to watch a lot of the first period, but yeah, you know what? I honestly I thought it was great. I thought for people, especially that got to watch the whole game, like waking up realizing there was a game on was pretty cool. Like I think for at least you know what I think maybe this is a hot take and maybe it's fitting coming from me, but I think maybe like one game per week in terms of like an early one. Like I'm not talking 8 a.m., but maybe like a 10, 11, so people out in Europe can watch a little bit. I mean, it's not bad when it's about 1 o'clock. I guess that'd probably be around 6, 7 o'clock there in Sweden for the afternoon games over the weekend. But you know what? Once in a while, maybe an 11 o'clock game or 10 o'clock game, get it a little earlier. I mean, it's not bad, especially on a Sunday, waking up and getting a hockey game in before Sunday football. I think that could also be huge because obviously Sunday football kicks off at 1 o'clock. So if you can get an NHL game, maybe that's an advantage for the league. But yeah, I mean, Sam, I don't know about you. I thought it was pretty cool that we got to see something early like that.
Yeah, I liked it. I mean, I had to set my alarm a little extra early. Make sure to get out, get the coffee going. We had a lot of fun. It was good. It was fresh. You know, you get that morning sun coming in, and it's just a great way to wake up. It helps that the Leafs pulled off a nice victory in the end. I don't mind those early games. The one that's get me, and we have it again this coming Friday, these 2 in the afternoon games. That's what drives me nuts because I know
Yeah.
there's a lot of people out there, they're at work, they can't necessarily take off to go watch it, or they can't watch it at work, they can't listen to it. Those are the tough ones, those middle of the afternoon games. But I'm all for it. Weekend, early in the morning, let's do it. So going into the Swedish adventure, a lot of conversations taking place, a lot of rumors, and I mean, let's just call it out. Klingberg, we don't know what the deal with him is. He's injured. Is he going to end up going on long term IR? Is this a ploy just to work him into some kind of deal? He's a big rumor I want to talk about today. Of course, we have the rumors surrounding Calgary and potentially 1D or 2 coming over. There's the Patrick Kane rumors going around. All of this stuff started bubbling up as the team was going out and then now coming home with the Patrick Kane stuff. So why don't we start? Oh, and of course, Ryan Reeves. You know, a great great trip for him across the pond to watch it from the press box.
Yeah.
Um, let's start with Klingberg because I mean we're not calling anything wrong here. He has not been great. What do you think there this is going? Where do you think it's going with Klingberg? And Prophet, what's going on? Welcome in.
I'll say this. I think if they had the knowledge prior to the season, and I mean like very specific knowledge to the point where they could see this scenario playing out, then the Leafs made a smart decision in theory here. Like I think if the mindset was okay, we're going to go into the season signing this guy for 4 million, and you know what? If it works out, great. If it doesn't, and he's injured, and that's the only reason it wouldn't work out, then we put that 4 mil on long term injury reserve, and we have 4 mil in the bank to go towards a big trade in the season. And I'm not saying that's what happened here. I think maybe they got a scenario where now they just got to think on the fly. But I mean, I don't think there's no conclusion here yet on the Klingberg situation. I think Friedman said we'll find out over the next week or so. But yeah, I mean, Sam, I look at this situation. If Klingberg goes on LTAR, or if that ends up being a scenario, the Leafs end up having a huge advantage. Obviously, you don't want to wish an injury on a player, and I mean, Klingberg's been battling this for a while, so it's not like this is like happening on the fly here. But I think the Leafs start getting a huge advantage here because a lot of the contending teams, if not all of the contending teams, have no cap space.
Yep.
So all of a sudden, the Leafs have this advantage of some flexibility, and I know a lot of people have kind of ripped into the Leafs for not having that. So now you're seeing teams like Ottawa or you could go down the list, even teams like the Rangers. If they want to make moves, it's just not happening unless you're moving contracts out. So, I mean, we could talk about different things. I think this conversation might tie into William Nylander and a possible extension at some point because, yeah, once we go back to the Sweden trip, I mean, Nylander just probably added a few hundred K onto his future contract once again. So as this keeps going on, what's going to happen with Klingberg kind of ties into, okay, are they willing to extend Nylander in season here? Because I think at one point we were in around 9. I think a few games in, 10 was already the conversation. And now, I mean, Sam, I think Nylander probably keeps looking at that Matthews number. So yeah, going back to your Klingberg answer, I do think that we're going to get some resolution here. Uh, I would say prior to the month of December. I think they probably wanted the decision now. What's going to happen here? He hasn't played, and the fact that now the Leafs, in some sense, have publicly spoken on it, specifically Sheldon Keefe, basically saying it's not looking good, and who knows what's going to happen. We'll see. But I don't know your thoughts, but it's not looking good for Klingberg. On a personal side, I hope for the best for him. But yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone would deny that he has been pretty brutal this season, injury or not.
Yeah, and hips are always tough, right? If it is actually the hip. You look at Backstrom, Washington, he had the surgery, he tried to come back from it, he had to kind of take a leave. It's just not getting to where he needs it to be. So you never know when the hip happens, what your recovery is going to be like. I agree. I don't think it's good for Klingberg. Um, I really wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt. I was not overly happy with his signing because I didn't think he played well last year either. Fred, what's going on? Um, we gave him a try. We gave him a couple of games. Didn't work. And now you're right. Does he go on long term IR? Do we get that money? How do we spend that money? I honestly thought they were going to announce a Nylander extension while he was in Sweden with the
Oh, that would have
family.
been insane.
I thought you get grandma to come out and announce it, and it would have been a big to do. I mean, I maybe he was too busy with all the talk shows and the movie premieres and the mall openings and everything he was doing over there. Guy was a true rock star, but that would have been awesome. I agree. He's probably now going to be in that 10+ million range. It kind of begs the question: in order to get him signed, is that going to hurt Marner next year? Because Marner, something's up with him. He's not playing he's getting points, but he's not playing well right now. And of course, we know Tavares also going to be up for an extension. He's going to take less money. So can they stagger Nylander's contract? Can they tack on the signing bonuses? However, they need to make it work. The way this kid is playing right now, I think you got to get it done. So does that 5 mil? Let's assume the 4 mil from Klingberg, do they use that towards an extension, or does that money kind of go towards one or both of Zadorov or Tanev in let's run with this Calgary rumor that if those are in fact the guys Toronto is targeting, because there could be somebody else. They could go, outside of, what social media is buzzing about. Um, do you think that would be a wise move, going Tanev, Zadorov, or both? Curtis, what's up?
Yeah, I mean, I actually, in a weird way, I actually like the Chris Tanev fit a little bit more if he can stay healthy. I like Zadorov. I think he's an absolute beast, but I think he's a bit more high risk. Like you're probably Chris Tanev for me is probably a better version of a Luke Shen. Probably not as physical as Luke Shen, but just stable defensively. Can really offset your offensive defenseman. I mean, just look at what Quinn Hughes. I mean, look what Quinn Hughes is doing in general, but I think Tanev was a huge part of Quinn Hughes' development. I think he would probably be a better fit next to Morgan Riley. So I think it begs the question, what are you looking for? And if you're looking for both guys, then yeah, you can bring in Tanev, put him next to Riley, and then you can put Zadorov either offset Brody or you can put Zadorov next to McCabe and just hope that those guys are not high risk in their mistakes. I think I actually compared McCabe a little bit to Zadorov. Obviously, he's nowhere near his size, but both physical guys, both eager guys on a pinch, but they can make their mistakes. They make their fair share of mistakes. So I think McCabe, and I know Sam, you like McCabe a lot. I think if Zadorov came in, you'd probably be in the same boat with Zadorov. I think Leaf fans would be all over Zadorov. I think he'd make big hits. I think he'd be a huge presence on the ice, and a lot better of a skater than Ryan Reeves. So I don't think we'll be afraid in that department. So yeah, I mean, to answer your question, I'd love both. I think and again, this will continue to tie into the Klingberg conversation because if you don't have to include Klingberg in this trade, you are not giving up nearly as close to what's being thrown out there. Like I'm seeing Leaf fans like put up offers that are next to little, and then I'm seeing outside fans or outside insiders going, all right, first round pick, come on up. Fraser Minton, come on up. And Topi Nimala, come on up. So you're talking about like two legit prospects plus a first round pick for two rentals. I think that's absolutely insane. So no chance that happens if Klingberg doesn't have to be part of the deal. I think really the only chance the Leafs are considering a first and a decent prospect in this trade is if you're getting these guys with an extension, right? I think if you can talk to the Calgary Flames and there's a scenario where you get a 48-hour window, for example, to really like go hard at signing these guys long term. And then maybe you even consider moving on from a guy like Brody if you could bring those two guys in. So I'm not saying that's necessarily the path here. I think there is a fit for. I honestly think there's a fit for both Brody and McCabe. Even if you get both those guys, I think if you spread the lineup up and then you decide for the sixth guy between Timmins and Liljegren. But yeah, I think Giordano, if you made a trade like that, I think Giordano, you'd finally get the opportunity to rest him throughout the season.
Yep.
And then give him a fair shot in the playoffs. Because I think last show we talked about it. Giordano looked really worn out by the playoffs last year. So I think if you made a trade like that, you could really consider moving one of Timmins or Liljegren in that trade. And then the seventh spot goes to Giordano, where he comes in maybe every other game, gives the guy a rest, and then go from there. But yeah, I think there's a lot more positivity towards a trade like that if you don't have to include Klingberg and you have some cap flexibility.
For sure. And Peter, hello, welcome in. John, welcome in. God, I want to disagree with you so much, but I can't. Like everything you said, I feel the exact same way on. I'd love to see both these guys come in. You're right. I'm a big McCabe fan. I love his physical presence. Makes the occasional, okay, more than occasional mistake, which it drives me nuts at times. But I like that he's getting in there. He's grinding it out. I often look at our defense and I compare them to the defense of Vegas last year. Winning the Stanley Cup. Vegas's defense was massive. They were big boys. They were hard hitting. They were physical. And I think that's what you need if you want to go on a cup run. You have to be able to hit hard. You need to be able to stand the test of time over the 2 months of the Stanley Cup playoffs. And running guys like Giordano, who I think has been awesome. The fact he dropped the mitts and got in there and had a little tussle,
Oh,
good for
beauty.
him. We need more of that. But at his age, and I'm not one to talk, but at his age, he can't play a whole season that physical and that hard with the amount of minutes he was putting up. So I think it would be great. A number one draft pick, no way. Like, so I've seen those two on social media, and some of the trades are ridiculous. They're almost in line with the folks with Edmonton struggling, where they're like, well, Toronto will give you Klingberg, Reeves, and Samsonov for Connor McDavid. Like, come on, that's not going to happen. I love you people out there, but that's not actually something that's going to even be thought about. But it would be interesting. You bring those two in, it kind of does solidify your line a little bit. I think it allows Riley to kind of scale back. I mean, he's putting up 20, 25 minutes a night. That's a lot of hockey to do that
Yep.
over the course of the entire season. Um, they got to be able to rely on some other people the way they're relying on Riley. And one person who I actually really, really, really like how he's been playing, and I really want to get your opinion, is Lagesson. I
Yep.
thought he's been awesome. He's in the right spots. He's getting physical. He's, mucking it up. I don't see him making as many mistakes as he did in the first part of the season. So he's growing, he's learning. What do you think of Lagesson and how he's been?
Yeah, no, he's been very steady, and I think he's from what we've seen so far, it's kind of just like a quiet, calming presence, if anything. Like I don't think I've seen like too many crazy decisions from him, or trying to get too creative. I mean, creativity is always great in the game, especially when you're watching with Nylander out there. But I think for Legason, he knows his place, he knows what he's coming into. And I think there's a lot of defensemen, especially in a market like Toronto, that come in that want to try to shine and show big and kind of show off their skills to be kind of a permanent guy. But you know what? Sometimes in a media like Toronto, in a market like Toronto, and Justin Hall learned this probably the hardest way, and many other defensemen before him, is that sometimes being the most invisible player on this team is actually the biggest benefit. If you can come through 60 minutes and go through 60 minutes through Toronto media and not be talked about, you had a successful night, especially if you're a defenseman on the Toronto Maple Leafs. I think, sure, in an offensive way for forwards, you want to be talked about. But if you're a defenseman and you're not, I would say, Morgan Riley putting up points, you probably don't want to be talked about. Like, to me, Sam, I've always said this about a guy like TJ Brody. If you're not talking about TJ Brody, he's doing his job. That's a guy like Brody you should not be talking about. And to me, it's same thing with a guy like William Legason to a smaller extent. What I feel like a lot of games I'm not talking about him, but when I'm focusing in on him on certain shifts, he's making simple breakout passes. He's pushing guys out of lanes in front of the net, and he's just steady. So he can probably be on that bottom pair, have 14, 15 minutes against easier matchups, and I'm completely fine with him being there. So yeah, maybe he's not the absolute best case scenario in the playoffs, but I don't think Leaf fans right now are negative on the guy if he has to be on that bottom pair. I think he's actually been really steady.
Yeah, he's playing really well. Gordon, what's going on? Welcome in. Good to see you. Thanks everyone for being here. We're talking with John, Hot Take Hockey. If you haven't seen him, definitely check him out and everything he does. We talked a little bit about Marner, what he's got going on, or sorry, Nylander, and what he's got going on right now is absolutely wild. I mean, this streak is magic. And last year when Marner had his streak going on, it was kind of the talk of the town. It was everybody was going the streak, the streak, the streak. Nylander's kind of going through there, and it's being talked about, but I don't think as much. It's kind of going under the radar, and I don't know if it's a superstitious thing that it's not really being brought up until he gets a point. Um, but this guy, holy smokes, that overtime goal in the last game against Minnesota. I mean, he's just really showing he's a little guy. He's got all the tools: speed, hands, creativity. Um, are you worried at all that they just can't get something done? In Pittsburgh, what's up? Christina, what's up? Welcome in.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a worry, and I've actually had so many people talk to me about him going to Chicago. I don't really know where that rumor started. I think it's just the fact that they're going to have so much cap flexibility, and playing with a guy like Connor Bedard would just be electric. And the conversation around Nylander is like his father, he wants to get paid, but also at the same time he wants the respect, and I think he enjoys the spotlight, so he wants to be in a big market. Chicago would bring that. But I don't know if you saw on Twitter, John Buccigross brought up that he thinks LA and the Rangers could be destinations for Nylander, and obviously Nylander, the connection with Henrik Lundqvist and his family, and I think I think the Rangers would be another big market. But again, similar to the Leafs, the cap space. Like, where are you getting that cap space, right? Like, a team like the Rangers would have to move contracts out, similar to the LA Kings. They'd have to move. I mean, they have a couple contracts coming off the books, but they'd have to move contracts out. So I don't think Nylander, there's a team out there that's in a better position, that's a contender at least right now, to sign him in over Toronto. But a team like Chicago would be interesting. I think that's why a lot of people are bringing him out, because I think the Blackhawks in the offseason could really be like, you can play next to Connor Bedard and make $12 million per year. And honestly, I think Chicago would do that in a heartbeat. I
Oh,
really
I
think so.
I think so as well. Rob, how's it going? Welcome in.
Yeah.
That's interesting because Chicago right now, I mean, yes, they have Bedard. There's not much else really clicking over there in Chicago. Um, he's doing quite well. I mean, he's leading all rookies in points right now, but he's also, I think, what is he, -7, -8? Um, so it's going to be interesting to see what Chicago does. I always hate, you get a good player like that, and of course, you only get that good player because you're at the bottom of the league to begin with. But I would like for his sake to at least be able to get some more W's under the belt, get that winning experience. I absolutely love though the one hit. I think it was it Kulikov hit him, and here came
Felino.
Felino jumping in
Yep.
and kind of getting in there, kind of sticking up for him. I love to see that kind of stuff. But boy, Bedard and Nylander, if that ever happened, the creativity between those two, I think it would be next level. It would be
Yeah,
ridiculous.
it'd be insane. So do you put more stock in that? Because yeah, I mean, Sam, a lot of people are telling me that, like a Nylander Chicago scenario. Or do you think if he leaves, it'd have to be another contender being creative and moving contracts out, which is not impossible. I mean, LA could make one trade one of their $6-7 million forwards. They have Arvidsson coming off the books in the summer, and then all of a sudden Nylander is on a top line with fellow Swede like Kempe, or maybe he's playing with Kopitar, maybe playing with Dubois. Like I'm looking at that. Do you see that as a scenario where he could go to just a contender if he's leaving Toronto, or do you like? I guess what I'm trying to ask is like, what are the tiers here, Sam? Like, and I've been trying to think about it. Is it Toronto number one, and then maybe contender, and then maybe a team that will pay him the 12 million, or like what are you thinking on it?
Yeah, I'm kind of there. Evan, hello. David, what's up? Michael, good evening. Welcome in, everybody. As you are coming in, if you haven't hit that like, do hit that like, and of course, hit that subscribe as well. I'm right there with you. I think Toronto's going to be destination number one. I can't imagine, as much as he would be excited to go with a Bedard, I can't imagine he wants to go through a rebuild after being through all these years in Toronto
Yeah.
where they just couldn't get it done. They couldn't get it done. To consciously make that decision to go to a team where there's, I don't want to say no shot at making the playoffs, but there's no shot at making the playoffs right now. It's going to take them a little bit of a build for Chicago to get back in there. There would probably be a better chance of going to an LA. I mean, anytime there's an opportunity to play with someone like Kopitar, who I think is one of the more underrated players in the league,
Yep.
how do you pass that up to get a chance to go play with a superstar? But I really think he wants to be here. And this is kind of his number one choice. If it came down to it where they just said, there's absolutely zero way we can make this, financially satisfying for you and what you want, then maybe he starts saying, okay, here's my short list. Rangers would be a good one as well. But the way they're playing right now, as much as they'd love the ability to trade or bring in a Nylander, I don't know you want to mix up the chemistry that they have going on. I mean, the Rangers look so solid. I did not anticipate them to be playing as well as they are. So I hope for our sake they get something done. I'd love to see them be able to go through and move, but it's going to be a very interesting piece of dominoes to see how the chips fall.
Yeah, and Sam, what I was kind of talking about is, I also got to give Jen a shout on Twitter because she was reiterating it. But I've talked about this since the start of the season. Is that the Leafs have had so many cracks at going for a run and doing things in the playoffs and having this successful team. So at the end of the day, these guys are young enough that if they have to wait a year next year, and I think you mentioned it, Tavares has 2 years left on his contract, including this year, right? So same with Marner, he'll get a raise, but Marner won't get to the Matthews number. So even if Marner gets a raise, to me, I think it might be a $1 million raise. He
Mm-hmm.
might get the jump from like right now he's at basically 11. I could see Marner getting to 12 or 12 and a half, right? So that is not really going to affect their cap picture long term, indifferent from what it is now. The Nylander one obviously will. Tavares for next season, if we're talking about the 2024-2025 season, you might just have to accept that you have minimal depth. You don't have much on defense past maybe if you brought in, like I said, a Tanev or Zadorov or both. You just extend those guys, and then you let a guy like Brody walk, and then you'd have to let a guy like Samsonov walk, and
Yep.
Joseph Woll is your number one next year. In those scenarios, you can afford a William Nylander at 11.5 million, something like that, right? And I think at that number, Nylander would probably stay. I think between 11 to 12 million. That sounds insane. I mean, at the start of the year, I was saying Nylander at 9.5. I was sold on that point. I've seen other guys sign that contract, whether it's Nikita Kucherov, Braden Point, even Mikko Rantanen's around that number. I was saying Nylander was going to be in around 9.5. Unless he completely falls off at some point this season, to me, he's probably in around that $11 million mark. So I really think that if Nylander is at that mark, you just have to accept that next year, you're not going to be able to build this complete team. And it's just 1 year. Yes, it's 1 year where you're not hoping you're not getting exactly what you want. But again, folks, we look at the Edmonton Oilers right now, and of course they could change their season around, but they thought they had the perfect team this year. They
Yep.
thought they were ready, set, and go for a Stanley Cup run. And obviously that can change. I mean, we could be talking in 3-4 months right now, and I would not be shocked if the Oilers were right back in the playoff picture. But what I'm saying is the Leafs would still have a good team next year. Yeah, they might not be complete on depth. They might not have a secure goaltending tandem. But once that year finishes, I've stayed on this mindset that I am very confident John Tavares will sign an even much more friendly deal to stay with Toronto. I think his family's here. His wife has her roots completely here, working all. I really think Tavares will look at the picture, especially if they don't win this year and next year. He'll look at it and go, okay, I'm really making a difference if this team's going to go far or not. And I honestly think at that point, Tavares may even accept the fact that he might have to move on from captain of this team. I honestly think, Sam, I'm getting too ahead of it, but I think at that point, it might be Tavares signing a very cheap deal, probably cutting his current deal in half at the very least. I think he'll definitely be below 6. I wouldn't be surprised if he was below 5 at that point. And I think it could be long term to get that cap hit down. So I think that will happen. I think a captain move, if they don't win in the next 2 years, could happen. And I think they would do that to keep Nylander. Again, it really comes down to the conversation of if they feel Nylander is going to be, if he's going to have that longevity career. And I mean, I think the way we see him control the game, Sam, and his skating, and yeah, he's not the biggest guy, but I think how he plays and how he controls in the offensive zone, he actually plays like a big guy and a big skater. So I don't think this is like a Johnny Gaudreau situation, folks. Gaudreau was on such a crazy line in Calgary and a much smaller player. I've seen a couple of comments here and on Twitter about that. But you know what? Nylander's showing his dominance. And I think he's really getting to a point in his career where it's going to keep progressing. And you know what? I am okay if they have to go. I was settled with 9.5. If they have to go an extra $1.5 million or $2 million to keep Nylander, I'm doing that in a heartbeat. You're not losing this guy for nothing in free agency. That should be a non-starter. You just pay him. If you don't want to pay him, you should have figured out a trade situation already. So if you're not losing William Nylander for nothing, this Toronto market, Sam, Flames would be going. It'd be a nightmare. It would be. Look how Calgary reacted when you lost Johnny Gaudreau and Matthew Tkachuk, but they at least got the return. If a Nylander situation was ever going to happen, you have to get the return. I've been saying that. So there's no scenario where you lose Nylander for nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. And Bernie, good to see you. Welcome in. Thomas, hello. Lee, welcome in. Yeah,
so
I
went
think
on
so.
A bit of a rant there.
No, it's good. Listen, it's the passion, right? We get so fired up. And with Nylander, you know, if they can somehow stagger that first year, so it's less money in the first year, take another year later on down the road and jack it up when the cap is a little higher. I think you're right. If Tavares wants to stay here, you know, the captain is going to move on. It's going to come off his sweater. He's going to take half of what he's making. If he loses half and that gets applied, not all of it, but some of it into Nylander, I think there is a path to make it work. It will be very interesting to do. And you're right. It's something where we might have to settle for a year where the depth is kind of funky. We got to make it work, but it's a temporary step to a potential huge next following year. One other player that's kind of come in that's not really Nylander's size, maybe a little smaller, who I'm obsessed with right now is Robertson. Robertson comes up. First of all, he was crushing it with the Marley. He was doing so good in the AHL. Comes up, him and Domi, this great chemistry they've started building off of. He's flying everywhere. Every time he goes in the corner, I kind of hold my breath a little bit because I think he's made of glass. But I am so impressed with how he's come in and adapted to this game at the NHL level so quickly. What are your feelings on Robertson this season?
Huge fan as well. I think I've been stressing if Nick Robertson can stay healthy, and knock on wood, we really hope we can see it. This guy is a big time consistent NHL player, and it should have never been a secret. I think at the end of the day, a lot of people are dismissing him because of his size, because of his skating, but this guy has a legit NHL shot. And yeah, he's a lot smaller than his brother, but I think his brother's showing how valuable that electric shot can be. And again, tying it back into that Nylander Tavares contract conversation, if guys like Nick Robertson and Matthew Knies can fill the gaps in terms of the depth, in terms of secondary scoring. I mean, Matthew Knies is on the top line right now, but if you get guys like that involved, and then guys like Fraser Minton are coming, Easton Cowan will be coming, maybe sooner than expected. Like, if you can get production and get involvement from these younger guys coming into the system, because I feel like the Leafs prior to these guys, haven't really seen it in a while. Like, haven't seen young guys kind of integrate into the system in a while like this. So it's really nice to see that Robertson has found success as a third line secondary scoring guy with Domi. And yeah, you know what, Sam? I feel like the last show we were on, Domi's another guy that we were really trying to like seeing Domi, Robertson, and even Yarncrow being successful lately is that we were really trying to figure out what that third line was going to do and if these guys were going to be successful. And I think now we're really trying to get a feel on some of these guys coming in as we're getting to that 20 game mark. I think we're seeing these guys settle in, whether it's Robertson, who's been around, but getting settled in that role. And then now we've talked about Bertuzzi and Domi, who
Yep.
have really turned it on lately. So, again, we're always saying this is the year, but the Leafs, at the end of the day, the forward group is really turning out to be, I mean, at least in my eyes, I won't speak for you, but I think there's been less, I don't know, concern or less interest in even making a move or touching that forward group right now. Obviously, that fourth line, you could probably add one more piece if you wanted because Reeves is just not working. It just hasn't worked. But at the end of the day, like, you can't critique this forward group very much right now.
Yeah, I mean they're doing well. The only issue I have, and I think everybody does before the Sweden trip, the amount of goals they were giving up was just atrocious. You can't give up 4 and 5 goals, but they're scoring the goals to put them in. And as much as we, might have been a little disappointed with the start and how guys were playing and the way the team was performing, I mean, right now when you look at them in the standings, they're third in our division behind Florida and Boston, who, again, Boston, I don't know what they're drinking in the water over there. They're ridiculous.
It's
But
insane.
Toronto has made up for the sluggish start they have. So I have no issue where they're sitting in the standings right now. They're showing that they can play and they're continue going. And it's going to be really, really exciting to see how they kind of progress along. Now I know we're coming up to the 9 o'clock hour, and I feel like, John, we could talk forever on
Yeah.
these guys because they're so good. So I'm going to ask, as we going to start to kind of get together for some clothing thoughts, and Atomic, what's going on? Welcome in. What so far to this point has been your biggest surprise with the team? You know, I was going to ask disappointment too, but we'll leave that off the table for this episode. What's your biggest surprise with the Leafs in the first couple of weeks of the season? Beverly.
Yeah, I think starting with biggest surprise, I would say, and again, this I feel like this is more recent from what I've seen, but I would say biggest surprise is Noah Gregor. I think in terms, yeah, he hasn't put a lot of points on the board, but again, in a limited role on the fourth line, I just feel like he's a guy that whether it's on the penalty kill or just certain points in the game, you see that speed, you see that danger. I think if he has more of that killer instinct around the net, I mean, he scored a couple of big goals. Like, I went to the Leafs Canucks game. He had a big, I think it was a 2 point night. He scored the eventual game winning goal. I think you're going to see moments like that from Noah Gregor, and it goes back to the point. So him being my surprise, I think it goes back to the point that the Leafs probably missed out on having a really fast fourth line. If they had Gregor and Lafferty on the wings on that fourth line, I mean, I like Bobby McCann, and also someone mentioned in the chat, Kiefer Bellows, who the Leafs signed to an AHL contract. He's doing well with the Marlies right now. So you have different options for sure to join him on the fourth line. But yeah, I would say my surprise, Sam, so far has been Gregor because I think he's showing the fact that he's young enough still where he can keep improving, and he fits really well for that fourth line role.
That's a great pick. I mean, he really has been playing well, and he's showing he's got all the tools. Every time he touches the puck, he gives you this feeling like something can happen, and
Mm-hmm.
it's really, really good to see. I mean, for me, and we kind of already talked about him a little bit today. Lagesson has been my surprise. I wasn't sure what to expect. I knew nothing about this kid. Not even a kid. He's 27 years old, but he really has kind of stepped in, and even Benoit to a point has been playing okay, but Lagesson has stepped into a role, and he just has not let me down at all. I was really hoping, Timmins was going to be there to start the year, and he was going to be the guy I was hoping for this year. But of course, with his injury, didn't get that opportunity yet. But Lagesson is my surprise. And then the other kind of thing I wanted to mention or bring up to get your opinion on, when we look at rookies all around, we talked about Bedard. We know where he is, Matthew Nyes right now is sitting fifth on the rookie scoring. He's got 9 points in 17 games. He really has just moved up to start playing with Matthews and Marner for a little while. I mean, this is after Matthews went on his tear of a bajillion goals in the first couple of
Yeah.
games of the season. Do you think Nyes has a potential shot of playing with Bedard and Cooley and having a chance at the Rookie of the Year?
Honestly, Sam, I'll probably offset all this conversation. I'll probably say no, but I think to be honest, I think he has to do something that stands out in a big way. And honestly, if he had like a crazy streak at this season, which is possible with those two guys, and I can kind of tie that to Marner really turning it on. And I feel like every time I give a guy some crap, he ends up turning it on. So Marner, I'm giving you crap, turn it on, buddy. I think if Nyes could pot 30 goals, Sam, and I think really that's the number for me. If I register in my head, oh my gosh, Matthew Nyes scored 30 goals, you don't even have to be a Leaf fan. I think outside of the Leafs umbrella we're in, I think if a guy like Matthew Nyes put up 30 goals and put himself above the other guys in that department, because yeah, I feel like a lot of people have been saying Bedard's for sure for 30, 40 goals. So Bedard somehow didn't get to that point. If Nyes could separate himself in the goal department, maybe, and I think at some point, I mean, Matthews is going to score his fair share of goals, but Marner will have to find someone else at some points, and I think that could be Nyes in a lot of department. I also think like Nyes, it's tough, right? Because he doesn't get that power play time that those other guys you just mentioned, right?
Yep.
So even if he slips on the second unit, which he hasn't been consistently, like as it stands, I don't think he's been consistently at all. So the fact that he's not even seeing the good power play time and guys like Bedard and Cooley are, it's kind of a disadvantage right off the bat. I mean, if Nyes is on that top power play, and I actually suggested that you should, I think there's an opportunity to maybe spread out the power play a little bit and still have the stacked power play. Like have Nylander, Marner, Matthews together, maybe slide Tavares to the second unit for a little bit more leadership and structure, and then have Nyes in front of the net maybe. So I mean, that's just a suggestion. I would even say Bertuzzi is just such a crazy net front presence as well. So you've got your options. But to answer your question, I'm probably going to say no unless Nye starts getting that power play time. So I think if he starts getting that power play time, then I think 20 to 30 goals could be in the realm of possibility.
Yeah, that would be pretty awesome. He's going to fall into kind of the same area that Michael Bunting did a couple of years ago. I thought
Yep.
Bunting had a great rookie season. I think didn't he actually lead in points over Sider and Raymond? But I think it was that Toronto effect where, well, you're playing with Matthews and Marner, and you're just reaping the rewards there. I think he got hosed a little bit. Bunting was still my rookie of the year, so I hope Nyes can overcome it. Listen, I would be happy if he even ends up top three, getting his video highlight on the board for the nomination. I think that's a win. He's really playing well. He's impressed me with his fortitude and how he drives to the net. He's getting in the corners. He's doing everything we like to do. So I'm sure the points will come for him. Um, John, this has been awesome. I'm glad we were able to get together and kind of get something down and get together and talk some
We're going to
Leafs.
start doing this more.
Yeah, we're going to do it more. So don't you guys in the chat worry. If you missed out on anything, if you came in a little bit late, go back, watch the replay. A lot of good conversation. There's still so many topics to touch on, so many areas to go. But listen, there's only so much you can do in a short period of time. So make sure you're following John. John, you're everywhere. Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. What's your handle on Twitter for everyone? Is it Hot Take Hockey across the board?
Yeah, hot take hockey across the board. Yeah, if you guys search hot take hockey on Twitter, Instagram, as Sam mentioned, YouTube, TikTok, if you want. I don't love TikTok, but honestly, it's a good content platform, so I post on there when I can. But yeah, honestly, reach out to me, guys. I've kind of told Sam I'm fully in support of everything he's doing. I love the streams. I think it's really good to see some genuine interactions for especially the Leafs. I mean, I've kind of Sam. I don't know if you know this. I've kind of been hard on the Leafs fans at some point. Not a large part, but I think there's a lot of toxicity that comes out of any fan base. And I think when I see a lot of the positivity and a genuine community online, it's a really good thing, and I want to be part of promoting it. So I'm looking forward to doing more shows with you, man. And Let's keep a great chat going. Don't worry, guys. I've been reading a lot of the chat, and as we progress this show, I'm sure it'll be more interactive, and we'll read more comments. But we kind of just wanted to kick off a little Leaf chat with no hockey tonight. So I really appreciate all of you guys watching, and make sure you keep supporting Samwelb.
Absolutely. Thank you, John. Appreciate it. Leafs are back in action Friday, 2 p.m. I will not stream it because unfortunately I'll be at work, but you bet your bottom dollar I'll be watching. We'll be on Twitter talking about it. So make sure to check both of us out. And of course, the likes, the subscribes, the notifications, all that YouTube stuff. You guys know the drill. Go ahead and do it. Watch for the next stream coming soon, and we'll make sure to talk to you all very soon. So thank you, mods. Appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for being here tonight to kick it off, this Leafs talk show. John, we'll talk to you real soon, and thank you so much for joining us. Everybody have a great night. Go Leafs, go.
Thanks, everyone.